Hello. Are you often struggling with wanting to modify your employees' behavior? Maybe you just need a little more effective feedback. Maybe you need more communication. I'm Jennifer Takagi with Takagi Consulting, and at the request of several of my colleagues, I put together this short video to give you some guidance on how to do effective feedback and the benefits. Also, like the drawbacks on if you don't do it. So, feedback. Sometimes you have problems with employees and you're really not sure what the problem is. You get a report, it's not at all what you expected. You think the employee is absolutely not performing. You're disappointed in their performance. Then you start believing that maybe their values just don't align with the corporate values or your small business's values. They're not conforming to procedures at all. They're not doing what you want them to do. And you feel like the guy in this picture, you're just over her shoulder, just constantly, this isn't right, this isn't right, this isn't right. She's sitting there just so blasé, like, really? You're telling me this again? There's a complete disconnect. There's a complete misunderstanding of what's going on. And there are so many reasons this could be going on. They could have different, oh, I just lost my light. Let's see what's happening here. Oh, well, I'm just going to keep going without it. They can have different behavioral styles. The DISC behavioral assessment is very good because it shows how people act and interact differently. And sometimes your problem with an employee can actually be you're miscommunicating because your behavioral styles are so different. Sometimes it's your responses to change are different. Some people just jump on the bandwagon. You say change, they say when. You say jump, they say how high. The opposite end of the spectrum, you have somebody and you say, hey, let's change how we do this report. And they're either internally or externally, depends on the person, going, are you kidding me? There's no way. They are fighting it tooth and nail. Then you've got the people in the middle going, what? Yeah, that's a great idea. No, that's a terrible idea. They are all over the board. I actually do assessments called Change Style Indicator that can help you figure out where your team is, where everyone is on that spectrum of responding to change, and that can help you communicate more effectively. And yes, in this day and age, you do have to modify your behavior to work with your employees. Sometimes it's a lack of understanding of your expectations. Like, what did you really want them to do? I thought I was clear and concise in saying what needed to happen one time. We had a huge project that was due. One of my employees did a great job of writing a template, a letter template, putting it in a shared drive, and you would go through and you would delete all the lines that didn't apply. So there was a 2-page letter, but when you put it together for your particular client, it might be like half a page, and then by the time you have formatting and signature blocks, it was a whole page, but it wasn't that huge. So one day I come into the office and I hadn't really been involved in this very much. The employee says, hey, would you join me with this meeting with this owner? And I said, sure, be happy to. We go in the conference room to go over all the documentation with this letter because we're calling this owner to tell him or her all the problems we have with their financial statement. And I said, what about this? Oh, I don't know. Well, what about this? Well, I don't know. Well, so did you look at this? Well, I don't know. So there was a complete disconnect. You had to have reviewed the annual financial statement, determined what problems there were. Then you only left in the pieces of this letter that related back to that statement. Somehow that had not been made clear, and she left every single item of that letter on there. Well, that owner only had like 4 issues, and there were like 36 in this letter. So it was a complete lack of understanding of what the task was and what her role was. I thought it was perfectly clear. So me as the manager, as the supervisor, it was totally on me. I failed to make sure that she fully understood what was expected. Sometimes the problem is an employee doesn't understand how they fit in the organization. They don't understand how this particular task affects this, and this. They think they're doing the right thing, but they don't know all the different places that can come into effect, and all the ramifications of doing what was done. They thought it was a good idea, the best intentions. What did my mom used to say? The road to hell is paved with good intentions. They intended to do the right thing, but they didn't understand how their position fit in and how that action would have a consequence that was not intended, not expected. So let me give you just a little sample of some bad feedback to an employee. Supervisor walks up to employee, hands him a letter, and says, "This letter sucks. This sucks. All your letters suck. And yeah, I need you to redo this because all your work sucks." Well, what does the employee do? What do they do with that information? Do they know what's wrong with that letter? They know it sucks, but what sucks about that letter? They don't know what sucks about that letter. What would be a much more rational way to have that conversation? A more rational way to have that conversation is what we're getting ready to discuss more fully, but it could go along the lines of, do you have a few minutes? Can we talk about this letter? As I'm reviewing this letter, I'm finding a lot of grammatical errors and punctuation errors. And last week I returned 2 letters for the same problems, and the week before 3. Does that resonate with you? Do you recall me returning those letters? Yes. Okay, they can't argue when you give them facts about something that already happened. But you're going in the recent past, right? You're telling them something that happened recently. You don't say, your letters always suck. There's a problem with this letter, right? And these 3 or 4 in the recent past. So then you get down to the nitty gritty. Why are there problems with the letter? Do you not know how to use spell check on their computer? Do you not know where that is? Or do you not know how to use grammar check? Does the organization provide some sort of training on spell check, grammar check? You know, what can be done to make sure they get this right? Then you end it with a follow-up. Okay, so you're going to go online, you're going to find some courses, you're going to take them, and then can we check back in a week and see, where you are on this? Perfect. Now they know what to do, not just that their letter sucks. In my case with the employee, we went back to ground 1. She did not understand the point of the exercise of contacting the owner and sending this letter. Same kind of deal. Something was totally missing. Why are people turning in letters that are incorrect, inaccurate with grammar and punctuation errors? I had an employee dump a letter on my desk one day, and it happened fairly frequently, and there were typically grammar and spelling and grammatical, punctuation errors. And so one day she dropped it on my desk, and I said, "Hey, wait a minute. If I weren't here today and you were acting for me, would you sign that letter?" And she just, the whole deer in the headlights look, "What? What? But you're here." I said, "I know I'm here. But if I weren't here, would you sign that letter?" And she said, well, but you're so good at finding those errors. And I said, "No, that's not the question. Would you sign that letter?" In the end, no, she would not have signed that letter. Why wouldn't she have signed that letter? Because it had grammatical errors and punctuation errors, possibly some spelling errors. So we had to get down to the bottom. Why wasn't she doing it? She wasn't doing it because I was doing it for her. She knew she could rely on me to fix those errors. So let's look at this little process that I was given, 8 or 9 years ago, and it's super helpful. So for feedback, we're going up the stairs, and typically on top of the stairs are the person giving the feedback actions. Underneath the stairs are the employee or the person you're talking to's actions. And I just want to say, this model works both ways. Like, you can share this with your employees, and then your employees can give feedback back to you, because you probably need feedback as the supervisor too. So the first thing is center yourself. You cannot leave a meeting where you are so frustrated at what your employee did that you go directly to them to talk to them about it. Why? Emotions are involved. You are going to be so full of emotion and so upset that you're going to say things you don't mean to say. And as the supervisor, you always have to have on the big girl panties, the big boy shorts, and you have to do the right thing. So you have to be centered and you have to be calm when you have this conversation. So center yourself, get in the moment. For the person that you're going to talk to and they say, yes, I'm available to talk to you, they need to release their agenda and practice appreciation. Practice appreciation for the fact that they're getting a gift. Feedback is a gift to allow someone to do something better or differently. Again, if both parties know this is the process we're going to follow, makes it much easier. Both parties need to know about it. So get in the moment so that you're cool, calm, and collected when you have the conversation. The conversation should start with, hey, Karen, I need to talk to you for a minute. Do you have time now? Is this convenient? As the leader, give them the opportunity to say no. Give them the opportunity to say, no, I need to finish what I'm working on. I need to finish this email. I need to finish this letter. Whatever it is, give them the grace to finish doing what they're working on. So often I would get calls from bosses and they'd say, drop everything, come to my office. Well, that just created so much stress and drama. Don't create the stress and drama. Is this a good time? Yeah. Or can we meet in 15 minutes? That would be better for me. Then when you get with them, describe the behavior that you observed. The last 3 letters that you have turned in had punctuation and grammatical errors. Do you recall that? They can't argue with the facts. If they say they don't recall, you have the copies of the letters right there. You can refresh their memory. For the person that this is being said to, you have to listen without interrupting, and you have to avoid assessing the situation and coming up with your game plan to mitigate the situation. Just listen and take it in. If your letters have been incorrect and sent back for punctuation errors, acknowledge it, right? Yes, they were sent back. Then the impact. This is so critical. Explain the effects on me, which in this case is you, the supervisor. How did this make you feel? Oftentimes in a corporate setting, we say we don't want to talk about feelings. There's no room for feelings in the workplace. But there are room for feelings because we need to make sure people know how we feel about this situation, because you can't argue with feelings. Can't argue with how I feel about this. So I feel like you're not taking pride in your work when you turn in letters that have these errors. I feel like you don't understand the importance of the deadlines, because then we lose time when they go back. So share your feelings about the situation. As the person who's having this shared with them, you often feel like you want to argue, you want to defend your position. Oh, I was in such a hurry. I have so many deadlines. But in actuality, you want to take it in and likewise share what you feel or see. But you want to keep this as much of a free-flowing conversation at this point as ever. If the employee wants to defend themselves, let them defend themselves, but go back to the observed behavior. At this point, you might be going up and down. You might be going back and forth between impact and the observed behavior, right? Because you're getting that collaboration, that agreement that everybody's on the same page. The next piece is solution dialogue. What can we do to resolve this? This is not working for either of us. You as the employee, because in the end, this could end up in disciplinary action. We don't ever want to go there, but that could happen. And you're tying up the work. If you're having to redo your letters, make corrections, you're taking up resources, and nobody has time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. There's a whole video on that. So when you're the one sharing the information, tell them we need to come up with a solution. Ask them, what resources do you need in order to do this better, do this differently? If you're the one receiving this feedback, probe for understanding, stay curious, stay centered. Listen to what they have to say. Listen to what they have to say. It can, again, be so easy to come up with 40,000 excuses and be working so hard to respond rather than have a dialogue and come up with a plausible solution. So then in the request, concrete suggestions, recognition, encouragement. This is also like the follow-up stage. Like, we are going to get together in a week and go over this. Or after you finish the course on punctuation and grammar or how to use those features on the program, we're going to get together and go over it, see how it went, see how you work. And sometimes on this part where it says thank him or her and consider whether or not the feedback applies, I was given feedback the other day, and I don't want to say it was harsh, but it was very direct. And at the time I just said, oh, okay, well, thank you. And I slept on it. And the next day I got to thinking about it and I thought, this doesn't apply, and here's why. So I contacted the person again and I said, I really appreciate that. I'm going to respond differently in the future, but I want you to know why I pushed back on this. I don't really agree with it. So, here we go. This was not an employee-employer situation, but the same type of process really applies. So when you follow this model, when you're talking about the behavior, when you're talking about how it makes you feel that you've been disrespected because you've talked about this before, you feel that there's a lack of understanding about the importance, and you end up with agreement across the board, and then you're going to end up with work that's done well. If by some chance that you've gone through this feedback model, you've done it more than once, most likely, sometimes things escalate. And that's a whole human resources discussion. But you need to make sure that you have given them every opportunity to see it from your point of view and what's needed for your organization. Use this model, try to make it where everyone knows what to do. Feedback needs to be timely. I had a real problem in my past organization because we had mid-year reviews and year-end. That was what was required, mid-year, year-end. Well, the problem was mid-year, I couldn't hardly get my people to talk to me. I had to literally trick them into coming to the conference room and having a conversation with me. Everything had been moved to an online system, so it was very easy for everybody, me included, to just click through the buttons and be done with it. But you cannot go in at the end of the year and put something on a year-end review that's a surprise. You cannot do it. Everything in a year-end review should be expected. Why? Because everything was timely throughout the year. You gave feedback in a timely manner. They were disruptive in a staff meeting. You addressed it, if not that day, the next day, or the soonest possible opportunity afterwards. Consistently, you're consistently giving feedback. You're consistently telling them that they're doing really well or that there are places where they could improve. It's accurate. You have to be clear and concise. When you say this report is incorrect because of XYZ, you better be right and you better be accurate. So make sure you take the time to do this accurate. Then you need to follow up and follow through. So critical that you follow up and follow through. Make sure if they were supposed to take a class that they took the class. Make sure that their future reports are correct. Take the time to look at the work. Take time to check back in with them to see how they're doing. So very important. And then you can sit down, have a cup of coffee, and have a conversation in the future. And it's not going to be a contentious discussion, and it's not going to be a stressful discussion. It takes practice. This doesn't just come overnight. It's not like just a one and done. Have to work at it. It's like any other muscle. You don't go to the gym one time and come out with, a bodybuilder's body. That's not how this works. You have to keep practicing. I'm Jennifer Takagi. You can reach me on my email at jennifer@jennifertakagi.com. My website, Takagi Consulting. I have a Facebook group, New Manager Mastery, where we continue the conversations that start in my podcast, New Manager Media, Manage Right from the Start. And you can always reach out and call me or text me if you have any questions or problems. So good luck with your feedback, because you're going to go through a behavior modification program with your employees. And actually what it is just really effective feedback. I really look forward to connecting with you soon.